I moved 2 months ago into an old house built in 1924. I live alone, and I have two cats, but they don't have any special powers. Since moving in, I've had a few strange experiences that I just can't explain. One night I woke up feeling uneasy, but I wasn't sure why. I went to the bathroom, then headed to the kitchen to get a drink. As soon as I stepped inside, I noticed something strange. All the cupboard doors on one wall were open, some were slightly ajar, others wide open. Now I know I didn't leave them that way before going to bed. I like to keep things neat, and I always close the doors. A couple of weeks later, I was in my home office. The house was quiet. No TV, no music, just the sound of my work computer humming. Then out of nowhere, my dryer buzzer went off. At first I didn't think much of it, but then I remembered I hadn't been in the basement for at least 3 days, and I definitely hadn't done any laundry. The buzzer usually sounds once when a cycle finishes, but this time it kept going off, again and again every few minutes. For about 15 minutes, I just sat there staring at my office door, listening. I knew there was no one else in the house. My cats were both upstairs, nowhere near the basement. I started to feel uneasy, but I forced myself to ignore it. The next day, I was still thinking about it while FaceTiming with my sister. I finally decided to go down to the basement. My washer and dryer were covered in this strange, rough, gravel-like substance. The floor above them is wood. There was no dirt or gravel anywhere else, just on the machines. It was strange, but I tried to find a reason. I blamed my cats, even though it didn't look anything like their litter. They're 8 years old, and I've never once seen them carry things around or drop stuff like that in random places. About a week later, I was working in my office again, when I heard a noise from the front of the house. It wasn't loud, but just enough to catch my attention. Curious, I got up and walked into the living room. That's when I noticed something strange. The attic door was open, about 6 inches. That door is always closed, latched, and I hadn't touched it. Trying not to overthink it, I shut it, made sure it was locked in place, and went back to my desk. Not even 10 minutes later, I heard another sound. My stomach tightened as I walked back into the living room. Sure enough, the attic door was open again, just like before. I stared at it, feeling uneasy. There was no reason for it to open on its own, especially not twice in a row. I closed the door again, this time making sure it was really latched. No windows or doors were open, so there was no draft. And my cats were still with me in the office. Then yesterday, something else happened. When I got home, I saw that my front door, the one I never use, was slightly open. Only the chain lock was holding it shut. I checked everything carefully. The handle was still locked. The screen door, locked too. I live alone, and my cats are definitely not opening doors. I don't feel like I'm in danger, but I do feel like I'm not alone in this house. My landlord is friendly, so I asked him about the history of the place. He told me no one has ever passed away here. It was his family home, he inherited it, and no previous tenants had ever mentioned anything strange. Now I'm starting to wonder, am I just imagining things or overthinking everything? This happened today and I still feel uneasy. I had my first driving lesson and it was a bit stressful. I had to focus a lot, and by the end I felt really tired. On top of that, I haven't been feeling well. My throat hurts and I have a bit of a cough. So after the lesson, I went straight home wanting to rest. I grabbed a warm blanket, lay down on the couch and tried to relax. Since I still had driving on my mind, I opened one of the apps I had downloaded and started reviewing road rules. The house was quiet, completely silent because I was home alone. There were no cars in the driveway or in front of the house. I had the lights on low since the front room gets plenty of natural light through a big window. I'd been sitting there for almost 2 hours without moving much, when suddenly I heard a loud, forceful knock on the front door. The mail had already been delivered, and we weren't expecting any packages. I also hadn't heard a car stop outside. Lately, our village has had a lot of charity workers going door to door. It's been happening so often that it's starting to feel overwhelming. And since I was feeling sick, tired, and already drained from my lesson, I didn't want to deal with another one. I also felt a bit awkward about saying no again, so I stayed silent on the couch and hoped they would just leave. But then, they knocked 2 more times, each one louder than the last. That's when I started to feel uneasy. After a while, I heard footsteps going down the front steps, so I slowly moved to the window to take a look. I wanted to see who it was and where they were going, but when I looked outside, no one was there. I've read enough creepy stories and seen enough scary movies to imagine all kinds of things, but like most people, I tried not to overthink it. I told myself it was nothing and decided to make some lunch. I walked to the kitchen, which faces the backyard. There's a big window and a set of patio doors. Both had the curtains open, letting in plenty of light. And as soon as I stepped inside, something moved in the corner of my eye. My gaze shifted to the window, and for a split second, I saw the top of someone's head. It looked like they were crouching, trying to stay low as they moved past. My body froze, but my eyes kept following. Then, they appeared at the patio doors. I could see them clearly now. It was obvious he was about to try to get inside. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a tracksuit with a black jacket over it. The moment he saw me, he took off running. I heard his footsteps as he rushed up the side of the house. I ran back to the front room and looked outside, and I saw him sprinting down the street until he disappeared from view. Since I'm so brave, I immediately called my dad and begged him to come home. He didn't hesitate. He came right away. We checked all the doors and windows to make sure everything was locked. Then we called the police. They arrived soon after, asked me questions, and looked around the house. They said they'd keep an eye on the area, but they warned me to stay alert and keep the doors locked. I've had some strange experiences before, but nothing like what happened in our new house. I moved in at the end of October, but my wife, kids and pets didn't join me until the end of December. I spent many nights alone in an empty house. We started by removing all the carpet and priming the walls so they'd be ready to paint before we moved our things from the old house. At first I set up my air mattress in the living room, but when we started tearing out the carpet, I moved upstairs into the bedroom that my wife and I would eventually share. That's when strange things began to happen. On my first night in that room, I woke up, suddenly feeling something moving quickly around me. Even though my eyesight isn't great, I thought I saw a shadowy figure in the corner. Some nights I felt like someone was watching me. A few weeks later, something similar happened again. I heard a light turning on and off, and sure enough, the bathroom light was flickering by itself. After that, I moved my air mattress back downstairs. I told my wife about these events, but she didn't take them seriously. Then nothing happened for about a week, so I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. I sent my wife a picture on Snapchat with the caption, "It's easier to sleep with a sword," and moved my air mattress back into the bedroom since it was the only room with carpet. Then in the middle of the night, it felt like something jumped into bed with me and snuggled up right next to me. It almost knocked me off my air mattress. After that, I was scared to sleep without several lights on, and I always kept the bedroom door locked. The spirit didn't seem unkind, more like a playful ghost. So I told it that I was scared and I prayed for protection. I even joked with it saying, "Enjoy the house while I'm at work." After that, nothing really happened for a while. Just some soft, strange movements now and then. A few months later, my son moved in early, which was nice. I haven't told him about the strange things I experienced. We also brought our cats upstairs, and it was fun to watch them explore. We had started moving in some basic things, but the house still wasn't fully painted, and my wife was still living in our old place. One day before school started, my son was using a powered movie theatre seat, and our cat, Asuna, got her tail stuck in it. It was really bad. My son called me at work, so I rushed home. In the chaos, I ended up breaking the chair and its mechanism just trying to get her free. Her tail was broken in several places. It looked terrible. The vet had to shave it down. By that time, I had experienced 3 different touch events in my room. The first time it felt like something jumped into bed to cuddle with me. The other 2 times I felt a heavy weight lying next to me. Our cat never purrs unless my middle son is with her, and he wasn't there. One night she jumped onto my bed and started making strange purring sounds, getting very close to my face. I decided to record it so I could show my son and laugh about it later. But when I played the video back right after I said, "Get your rat tail out of my face," I heard a clear laugh in the background. It still gives me goosebumps every single time. After my divorce, I bought a new house to start fresh. The house is small but nice, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It sits on a large lot, giving me plenty of space to relax outside. The garden is simple, and the quiet street makes me feel safe. After moving in, I began to notice strange sounds at night, especially in the laundry room. I would hear creaks and soft noises that sounded like footsteps or a door slowly opening and closing. At first I told myself it was normal. Old houses make sounds after all. This one was built in 1974, but the noises didn't stop. They happened every night. After living here for a few months, I started getting to know my neighbours. I was busy with my own life, enjoying being single and living alone, but my neighbours were very curious. They always seemed to want to know more about me. I mostly kept to myself, went to work, came home, and stayed out of neighbourhood drama. One evening while I was outside pulling dandelions, I decided to ask the neighbours to the west if they knew anything about the people who had lived in my house before me. Her name is Sandy. She's an attractive, friendly older lady. Her husband Jim is a retired construction worker who used to operate heavy equipment. One day Sandy and I began talking about the house's previous owner, a kind elderly woman who had lived here before me. She was known to be a bit of a recluse, mostly kept to herself and collected many things, almost like a pack rat. Sandy explained that the neighbours had grown worried when they didn't see the old lady in her backyard for a few days. She usually spent time there every day tending her garden. Because it was unusual for her to break her routine, the neighbours decided to do a wellness check. They went over to her house just to make sure she was okay. They found her sitting in a recliner. It looked like she had passed away peacefully in her sleep, which I guess is the most important thing. Since I knew her name, I sometimes found myself talking to her, just sharing whatever was on my mind. Maybe that was wrong of me, I don't know, but I can't say for sure. Then, one day after a long, stressful day at work, I came home feeling exhausted and frustrated. I'd been dealing with too many truck drivers. Each one believed their container was the most important one in the yard. Handling it all day drained me. When I got home, I took a long hot shower to wash the day away. Then I made myself a simple dinner, something warm and comforting. Afterward, I sat down in my favourite recliner, feeling the tension slowly leave my body. I turned on one of those old-fashioned TVs and it was playing classic sitcoms from the 60s and 70s. The last thing I remember before falling asleep was Andy Taylor saying something like, "Not all that glitters is gold." I settled into my recliner with the TV still on and drifted off. Later, I was suddenly awoken by a loud noise. I heard old pots and pans, the ones I had stored on a shelf in the laundry room, falling to the ground. As I passed the kitchen, I noticed the microwave clock. It read 3:33 a.m. I looked again, And then I remembered that time was important. It matched the month and year my father was born. A shiver ran down my spine. I felt confused and curious. I slowly moved toward the laundry room door. I listened carefully for any sounds, maybe a soft voice or the creak of a floorboard, but the house was completely quiet, except for the sound of my own breathing. When I reached the laundry room, I switched on the light. The room was dim at first, but as my eyes adjusted, I saw a strange sight. All the pots and pans that I had stored neatly on the shelf were now scattered across the floor. They lay in a jumbled mess, some close together, others far apart, as if something had knocked them over in a hurry. I picked them up, put them back where they belonged. Then I went back to my room, hoping to sleep a little more. I still had about an hour and a half before work, but once I lay down, I couldn't fall back asleep. Since I was already wide awake, I got up and made myself a warm cup of coffee. I started getting ready for work slowly, taking my time. There was still plenty of time before I needed to leave. My husband and I moved into our new home about a week ago. We bought it from his parents, who had received the house from their parents. It's been passed down through generations. This is our first time owning a house, so we felt excited, really excited. My husband actually grew up here, and I remember when we first met, I used to spend the night in his old room. It wasn't the main bedroom, but even then I always felt a heavy, uncomfortable presence in certain parts of the house. My husband doesn't believe in anything paranormal, so he usually just brushes it off when I mention how I feel. Now, 8 years later, after living in 3 different apartments, raising 2 wonderful daughters, and taking care of our little noisy chihuahua, we've returned to this house. And now, we own it. I always knew that his grandfather and his uncle both passed away in this house. His grandfather died in our current bedroom, on the side of the bed where I now sleep. In all of our old apartments, our little dog always chose to sleep in her bed beside me. Always. But after we moved here, something changed. Every night, instead of lying down beside me, she pushes open the bathroom door and scurries to the far corner behind the toilet. It's like she's avoiding my side of the bed entirely. We tried coaxing her back, multiple times, but nothing worked. Eventually we gave up and moved her bed to my husband's side of the bed. Now she sleeps there peacefully every night. I can't help but feel that something about this room is different. It's almost as if the memory of his grandfather still lingers here, making the space feel just slightly off. Since we started unpacking, small strange things have been happening. Things that make me wonder if I'm just losing my mind. I'll put something down, turn away for a moment, and when I go back to it, it's been moved, just a few inches. I usually blame my stress and ignore it. Our daughters have been in this house many times before because their grandparents often took care of them while we were at work. But now, since we moved in, they've had trouble sleeping. They often wake up in the middle of the night. I don't know if it's the move or this house, but tonight was especially frightening. My oldest daughter, she's 6 years old, woke up at exactly 3:28 a.m. crying. She told me she had a bad dream. In the dream, she was watching something terrible happen and she couldn't stop crying about it. I held her until she calmed down, then gently tucked her back into bed. I stayed with her for a few more minutes until she finally drifted off to sleep. Then I went back to our bedroom. As I lay in bed, I felt it again, that heavy dark feeling in my chest, like something was pressing down on me, like a weight I couldn't shake. I closed my eyes, but the feeling stayed. I tried to sleep, but as I lie here in the dark, I feel afraid. I hope these strange feelings go away soon, and that I can sleep peacefully again.